My in-laws forgot their wallets. Again, so I dropped the folder that ended 4 years of being used. Please stay with me as I tell my story. And please do not forget to support our channel by subscribing to our channel, liking our videos, and sharing your loved one. Your support means the world to us. Now, to our story, I swear I could smell trouble before it even arrived that night. The kind of trouble that comes smiling, carrying casseroles, and wearing church perfume. We were at Ile Echo Lounge, one of those mid-range restaurants in Lagos that tries to look classy without being intimidating. You know the type: dim lights, plantain chips in baskets, background Afro beats humming softly. It was my husband Tunde's idea to have dinner with his parents and brother. Just a small family get-together, he'd said that morning while adjusting his tie. I should have known better. By 8 p.m., the food had arrived. Suya pizza for my brother-in-law Kunle, grilled tilapia for my mother-in-law, and a medium-rare steak for Tunde, who swore he'd start eating healthier next week. We laughed, we talked, and for a brief moment, I almost believed it would be different this time. Then, just as the waiter slid the bill onto the table, the familiar scene unfolded like bad theater. My mother-in-law reached for her handbag, patted it gently, then froze. "Oh dear," she said, eyes widening like she'd just seen a ghost. "My wallet. I think I left it in my other bag." Her husband followed right on cue. "Ah! Mine too," he said, checking his pockets with that exaggerated confusion only seasoned actors could pull off. I looked at Tunde. He didn't need to say anything. His silence was already an answer. He reached for his phone. I reached for my purse. And just like that, the play ended the way it always did. Me paying, them smiling. But this time, something inside me didn't move on. It wasn't anger that hit me. It was something heavier, like a stone settling in my chest. I'd been doing this for years, covering meals, tickets, fuel, urgent transfers. Every time I'd tell myself it was fine. "It's family," I'd whisper. "They'll remember next time." But they never did. That night I got home, slipped off my heels, and sat in the dark living room. Lagos lights blinked through the curtains. The hum of generators outside sounded like a heartbeat I couldn't escape. 4 years. 4 years of dinners, birthdays, accidental forgetfulness, and I realized it was never forgetfulness. It was a pattern. The next morning, I opened my laptop, created a folder, and named it Just In Case. At first, it was harmless, just one screenshot from the bank app, the N82-500 dinner bill from Ile Eco Lounge. Then another one from Valentine's Day 2 years ago when they forgot to bring cash for the hotel brunch. Then another and another. Within a week, I had over 30 entries, the dates, the restaurants, the excuses. They repeated like lyrics in a bad song. "Oh, we'll settle it next week. I left my wallet in the car. Ah, you know we're still waiting for that payment." Each line was a memory I'd paid for. Tunde walked into the room one evening and saw me typing. "What are you doing?" he asked, half distracted by his phone. "Just sorting out expenses," I replied. He nodded, didn't ask further, and went back to watching football. That was the first sign. He didn't look surprised. He didn't even look guilty. He just looked tired, and that's when it hit me. He knew. He'd always known. Maybe he thought he was protecting peace. Maybe he thought keeping quiet was easier than confronting his parents. But silence is a kind of betrayal, too. By the third month, my folder had its own subfolders: restaurants, vacations, emergency transfers. The total was crossing N$7 million. I wasn't planning revenge. I just needed proof that I wasn't imagining it. But proof changes things. It was around Easter when the final straw came. We were at a family barbecue in Ikeja. Laughter, children running around, the smell of grilled chicken filling the air. My mother-in-law walked over, smiling sweetly. "Ah, Naya, my dear," she said, holding a plastic cup of Zobo. "We forgot to pick up the drinks for tomorrow's service. Could you please help us get some crates from ShopRite? We'll pay you back next week," I smiled, of course. Smiling had become my armor. "Sure, Mama." I bought the drinks. 2 crates of malt, 1 of Coke, a few bottles of wine, and 43,000 gone. I added it to the folder that night. By then, I had stopped feeling hurt. I just felt numb. Weeks later, while cleaning Tunde's study, I found something I wasn't meant to see: a group chat on his laptop. Family support. His parents, his brother, and him. The most recent message was from his mother. "Don't worry about the bill. She'll handle it. She always does. I stared at the screen for a full minute. My fingers trembled. My heart didn't. It was quiet. Too quiet. That night, I didn't cry. I opened the just-in-case folder, selected everything, and renamed it Evidence. The next Sunday, Tunde's parents invited us to dinner again. I said yes, calmly, too calmly. When we sat down, the waiter came to take our orders. Tunde's mother smiled at me across the table. "You've lost weight, Onia. Lagos stress?" I smiled back. Something like that. Dinner went as usual, laughter, small talk, empty compliments. Then the bill came. N108,000, his father sighed. "Ah, my wallet," I interrupted him. "No need," I said softly. I reached into my handbag and pulled out a brown envelope. Not my card, an envelope. I placed it on the table. "What's that?" His mother asked, eyebrows knitting. "Receipts," I said. From the last 4 years, the table went silent. The waiter, sensing tension, disappeared like smoke. I continued, my voice steady. "Every dinner, every movie night, every forgotten wallet. It's all here. And 7 out of 14,000 in total. I thought I was helping family. Turns out I was just the family's ATM." His brother laughed nervously. "Nia, are you joking?" I smiled. "No, I'm done joking." Tunde sat frozen, staring at his water glass. His silence said everything. I pushed the envelope toward his parents. "You can forget your wallets, but I don't forget facts." And with that, I stood up, adjusted my dress, and walked out. Outside, Lagos air hit my face like freedom. I could still hear their murmurs behind me, confusion, embarrassment, denial, but I didn't care. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. It didn't matter if they paid me back. It didn't matter if they apologized. I had already reclaimed something more valuable, my self-respect. That night, I went home, opened the evidence folder, and added one last line at the bottom of my spreadsheet. Final payment, dignity restored. They say when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. But love makes you blind, and culture teaches you to smile while being used. I should have seen the pattern long before that last dinner. It didn't start in a restaurant. It started the day I became Mrs. Nia Tunde Adeyemi. The wedding that set the tone our wedding had been beautiful, or at least that's what everyone said. Golden drapes, also ebby fabrics shimmering under chandeliers. A live band playing all aloof, while aunties danced with all the energy of unpaid loans. But beneath the laughter and champagne, there were cracks. Small, almost invisible. It started 2 days before the wedding. My mother-in-law had called me, voice soft and sugary. "Nia, darling, can you help us settle the decorator's balance? We'll pay you back next week, I promise." It was N350,000, and like a good daughter-in-law eager to please, I transferred it without question. They never mentioned it again. The week after, it was the photographer. Then the hall balance. Then months later, the caterer who forgot to be paid. Each time, there was a new excuse. "Your father-in-law's account was frozen. We'll refund you when our business picks up." Ah, we thought Tunde handled it. It became a rhythm, a well-rehearsed family choreography. Tunde would always rub my shoulder, whispering, "Just help this one time, please. You know how things are." And I did. Because love makes you do foolish things, especially when it's mixed with African respect. By our first anniversary, I had learned something about my husband's family. They were allergic to responsibility. His brother Kunle was the worst. He'd show up at our house every other weekend, loud, flashy, always smelling like cologne and bad decisions. "Ah, Sister Nia, a beg lend me 50K. My guy go pay me tomorrow, I swear." Tomorrow never came. Once I told Tunde I was tired of being everyone's ATM. He just sighed. "You know Kunle is still finding his feet. Let's not make it a big deal." So I didn't. Instead, I created a folder on my phone called Family Loans, just like that. No anger, no confrontation, just quiet documentation. That was the beginning of the pattern. Me giving, them taking, Tunde staying silent. The next big red flag came on my birthday. I remember waking up to soft kisses and the smell of pancakes. Tunde smiled, holding a small gift box. "Happy birthday, my love." I opened it, a necklace. Simple, elegant, beautiful. We went out that night, a surprise dinner at Sky Lounge. My in-laws joined, of course. Halfway through the meal, my mother-in-law raised her glass. "To our beautiful Nia, the best thing that ever happened to our son." Everyone clapped. My cheeks burned with pride, until the bill came. $126,000. And like a script, the forgotten wallet act began. Tunde smiled awkwardly. Babe, you got this, right? I'll sort you later. I paid. The next morning, while doing laundry, I found the box the necklace came in. Inside a folded receipt, an $18,000, paid with my own debit card. He had used my money to buy me a gift. That was the night I realized love could look like loyalty but taste like exploitation. You'd think I would have confronted them, but in African families, confrontation is rebellion. When I once tried to mention it lightly, Mama, I'll start sending bills your way-o. She laughed, hand over her chest. Ah, Nia, are you not our daughter? You're part of us now, and that's how they got me. By wrapping manipulation in affection. By the time I figured it out, I was already their safety net. When their electricity bill came late, I paid. When their car broke down, I sent N70K. When Kunli's girlfriend got pregnant, guess who they called? They always started the same way. We're in a small situation. Don't tell Tunde. We don't want him worried, and I, the fool with a kind heart, kept saying yes, because that's what good wives do, right? They help family, even when that family slowly drains the life out of them. The breaking point came one rainy Tuesday. I had just lost a big client at work, my car battery had died, and I was running late for a presentation. My phone rang. It was Mama. Nia, please, can you quickly transfer N120K? Your father-in-law's blood pressure medicine finished. We'll refund by Friday. I sent it. That evening, while scrolling through Instagram, I saw a photo of them, all smiles at the Palm Cinema, watching a new movie premiere. Her caption, family night out. Blessed. Grateful. Same night she claimed to be at the hospital. I remember staring at the screen for a long time. My hands were shaking, but my tears never came. Instead, something inside me turned off. A switch I never turned back on. That was the night I opened my first folder. Once you start keeping evidence, you start seeing everything clearly. I began noticing things I'd ignored for years. Tunde's excuses, his mother's tone, Kunli's fake emergencies. They were all connected. I wasn't a wife. I was an investment they could withdraw from any time, but not anymore. I told myself, the next time they forget their wallets, I'll remind them who's been paying for their memory loss. And I did. That brown envelope I dropped at the restaurant wasn't a moment of anger. It was a carefully planned ending. 4 years of silence, printed on paper. When I walked away from that table, I didn't just leave dinner. I left the version of myself they created. The quiet, giving, guilt-driven Nia. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching Lagos lights flicker through the rain. And I whispered to myself, they taught me to be generous. But they never taught me to say no. The folder didn't just hold receipts. It held my backbone. And for the first time in 4 years, I wasn't afraid to use it. If peace had a sound, it would be silence after a bomb explodes. That's exactly what my life felt like the morning after I dropped the folder. No calls. No texts. Just silence. And in Lagos, silence doesn't mean calm. It means they're plotting the call that changed everything. It came 3 days later. My phone rang around 8 a.m. while I was getting ready for work. Tunde's mother. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. But something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe old habit, made me pick up. Good morning, Mama. Is it? Her tone was ice. So you've decided to disgrace this family, eh? Her words hit like cold water. Mama, I didn't disgrace anyone. I just showed the truth. Truth? She hissed. You went and counted everything we've done for you and turned it into receipts? Nia, are you not ashamed? I almost laughed. The audacity was breathtaking. What you've done for me? I said quietly. Please remind me. There was a pause. Then her voice softened, falsely. You're our daughter. But that thing you did? Very disrespectful. What will people say if they hear? There it was. The African golden phrase, what will people say? I smiled bitterly. Then maybe they'll finally see what I've been through. And I ended the call. Tunde came home late that night. He didn't greet me, didn't remove his shoes, just stood by the door like a stranger. What did you do? He asked finally. His tone wasn't anger. It was disappointment. But not in the way I expected. Not disappointment that I'd been used. Disappointment that I'd spoken up. You embarrassed my parents, he continued. I defended myself, I said. There's a difference. He laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. Do you even hear yourself? They're my parents. You don't treat elders like that. Then your elders shouldn't treat me like an ATM. We stood there, two people married by law but divided by loyalty. He turned away. You've made things hard for everyone. I can't even show my face in front of them. I felt my throat tighten. So that's what matters, your face? Not how I've been disrespected for years? He didn't answer. He just walked to the bedroom and slammed the door. That night, I slept on the couch, not because he asked me to, but because I couldn't share a bed with someone who shared his soul with my oppressors. The following Sunday, I got an invitation, or rather a summons. Family meeting, 4 p.m. sharp, bring Nia. The message came from his father. I went. Not because I owed them, but because I wanted closure. When we arrived at their Lekki house, everyone was already there. Mama, Papa, Kunle, even an auntie I hadn't seen since the wedding. I sat on one side of the living room. They sat on the other like a tribunal. Papa spoke first. Nia, we called this meeting because we are disappointed. Deeply. I stayed silent. In our culture, he continued, a wife does not keep record of her in-laws' mistakes. You should be building unity, not division. I raised my eyes. Calm, steady. And in our culture, elders should protect the younger ones, not exploit them. The air went cold, Mama snapped. Exploit? So now you're calling us thieves? If the shoe fits, I said quietly. Tunde's voice cut through. Nia, enough! You're making it worse. I turned to him. Worse for who? Them or you? He looked away. 2 days later, the whispers began. It started small. A friend of a friend called me. Nia, what's this I'm hearing about you keeping receipts of your in-laws? Then came the church gossip. Then neighbors. Then my own coworkers. They had told everyone I was disrespectful, greedy, ungrateful. A wife trying to destroy her husband's family. And in a culture where image is everything, that kind of rumor sticks like oil on fabric. My boss even called me into his office. Nia, I don't know what's happening in your home, but please keep family matters private. You're a reflection of this company. That day, as I drove home through evening traffic, tears burned behind my eyes. Not because they'd turned people against me, but because I realized how easily good women are painted as villains when they stop being silent. One night, while Tunde was in the shower, his phone buzzed beside me. A new message. From Mama, curiosity got the better of me. I glanced. Thank you for standing by us. She needed to be put in her place. Women forget who feeds them. I froze. Who feeds them? I laughed, out loud, bitterly, painfully. I had been the one feeding everyone, emotionally, financially, even spiritually. Yet somehow I was the parasite in their story. When Tunde came out, I asked him, Is that what you think? That your family feeds me? He frowned. What are you talking about? I showed him the message. His face turned pale. Nia, it's not what it looks like. Then tell me what it looks like, he stammered. They're just upset. You embarrassed them. No, I said quietly. They embarrassed themselves. I just turned on the light. For 2 weeks, we barely spoke. The silence between us grew heavier than walls. Then one evening, I packed a small bag. Just a few clothes, my laptop. The folder Tunde watched me from the doorway. Where are you going? Somewhere peace isn't a luxury. He didn't stop me. He didn't even ask me to stay. That's when I knew the marriage was already over. Not because of infidelity. Not because of money, but because of misplaced loyalty. He was married to me, but his devotion belonged to them. I walked out. No shouting, no tears. Just quiet footsteps leaving behind 4 years of noise. The twist, what they never knew. A week later, I sent an email to myself and copied their family group chat. Attached was a single file. Evidence PDF inside were scanned receipts. Messages, screenshots, everything. But at the end of the document, I added a note. You taught me to respect you, even when you disrespected me. You taught me generosity, even when you mistook it for weakness. You taught me that silence is loyalty, until silence starts killing you. This is not revenge. This is record-keeping. And I finally balanced the books. I hit send, then blocked every one of them. I moved into a small apartment in Yaba. No fancy furniture, no house help, no drama. Just peace. Every night I sat on the balcony with a cup of tea, watching the city lights dance. And for the first time in 4 years, I didn't feel used. The folder was still on my laptop, renamed one last time. Freedom. I didn't delete it. Not because I needed proof anymore, but because I needed a reminder. A reminder that kindness without boundaries is self-destruction. And that sometimes the only way to heal from being used is to stop being useful to the wrong people. They say time heals everything. But in Lagos, time doesn't heal. It exposes. And 6 months after I walked out of that house, truth started peeling off the Adiemis like old paint in the rain. The first few weeks after I left were peaceful. No calls, no messages. It was strange. After years of being constantly needed, the quiet almost felt like withdrawal. I'd wake up to the sound of kiki horns outside, make myself pap and akara, and sit by the window watching the morning bustle. No one asking for money, no one reminding me of family responsibilities, just me. I got a new job too, marketing manager for a fashion brand in Lekki. The pay was decent, the hours flexible, and for once I could spend money without guilt. Freedom had a scent. It smelled like rain-soaked dust and fresh bank alerts that belonged only to me. The first sign of karma came through rumor, the same way they'd once used rumors to ruin me. A colleague at work mentioned it casually during lunch. "Nia, you remember your husband's family, right? I heard their store in Surulere got shut down. My spoon froze mid-air." "Shut down?" "Yeah, something about tax evasion. Big wahala." I didn't react. I just nodded, sipped my malt, and smiled faintly. That night, I checked their Instagram page, Adeyemi and Sons Furniture Emporium. Last post, 2 months ago. Comments filled with complaints. "Where's my order? You people scammed me. Police report incoming." Apparently, their family business was collapsing. And suddenly, I understood why silence had replaced insults. It started with a message from Kunle. "Hey sis, long time, can we talk?" I ignored it. Then came another. "I know we've hurt you. Things are rough right now. Please just hear me out." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying, "Talk to your mother." He responded immediately. "She won't pick my calls. Everyone is scattered. I just need advice." Advice? The same people who told me to know my place now wanted guidance. I didn't reply. But that night, curiosity got the better of me. I opened Facebook. Mama had posted a long, emotional status. When life humbles you, you realize family is all that matters. I miss my children and my daughter-in-law. God, restore peace in my home. The same woman who once called me disrespectful now wanted restoration. Funny how life preaches the sermons we refuse to hear. It was a Saturday afternoon when the knock came. I opened the door and froze. Tunde. He looked nothing like the proud man I'd left behind. His shirt was wrinkled, eyes sunken, and the smell of exhaustion clung to him. "Nia," he whispered, "please, can I come in?" Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. He sat on the couch, hands clasped, silent. The air between us felt heavy, the weight of 4 years and one folder sitting in it. "I won't waste your time," he began softly. "Things have been bad, really bad. The business failed. My parents lost everything. We sold the house in Lekki. They're staying with Kunle now." I listened quietly. "I'm not here for money," he said quickly. "I just came to say, I'm sorry." That word hung in the air like something fragile. "Sorry for what exactly?" I asked. He looked up, eyes glassy. "For letting them use you. For standing by while they drained you. For not protecting you." Silence. Outside, someone's generator coughed and died. "Mama cried last week," he continued. "She said if she could take it back, she would." I leaned back, crossing my arms. "You all had years to take it back. I gave you silence, love, respect. You gave me debt and humiliation." He nodded. "I know, and I hate myself for it." For a moment, I almost pitied him. Almost. "Why are you really here, Tunde?" I asked quietly. He hesitated. They want to see you." I laughed, sharp, humorless. See me? For what? They're sick. Both of them. Stress, hypertension. I think they just want peace before... He stopped. Before what? Before it's too late. That night, I couldn't sleep. His words echoed in my mind. Before it's too late. I dreamed of that moment once, them begging, apologizing. But now that it was here, it didn't feel victorious. It just felt tired. I looked at my laptop. The Freedom folder sat there, quietly glowing, proof of everything, evidence of pain. The very thing that had set me free. Should I go back? Should I forgive? Or should I let them live with the silence they once forced on me? At 2 a.m., I whispered to myself, forgiveness doesn't mean returning. And that was my answer. Still, I agreed to see them. Not in their home, not in any place that once made me feel small. I chose a small cafe near Yaba, neutral ground. When they arrived, I barely recognized them. Papa's shoulders had slumped. Mama's once flawless gel was tied loosely. No jewelry, no perfume, just two old people carrying the weight of their choices. Mama's eyes filled when she saw me. Nia, my daughter. I didn't answer. She reached for my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't squeeze back either. We did wrong, she said softly. You were good to us, and we took advantage. I'm not proud of it. Papa cleared his throat. We thought we were teaching you humility, but we were teaching ourselves arrogance. For a moment, my heart trembled. These were the words I'd longed for. Then Mama whispered, Can you ever forgive us? I looked at them, two people who once made me feel invisible. Forgiveness is easy, I said quietly. But trust? That died 4 years ago. Tears rolled down her cheeks. We understand, Papa said. We just wanted to say sorry before God calls us. I nodded. Then say it to him, too. I stood up, dropped a small envelope on the table, and walked out. Inside that envelope was a single sheet of paper, a bank receipt showing N100,000 transferred to their account. The memo read, For peace, not repayment. Weeks later, I got an unexpected call from Kunle. Sis, Mama passed. My heart stilled. I didn't cry. Not because I didn't care, but because some losses don't draw tears, they draw silence. At the funeral, people whispered as I walked in. Isn't that the daughter-in-law who exposed them? But no one dared speak louder than the priest. Tunde saw me, approached quietly, and whispered, Thank you for coming. I looked at him, eyes dry. Good people attend funerals, Tunde. Doesn't mean they forget the dead. He nodded, guilt etched into his face. That day, I realized forgiveness wasn't for them. It was for me, to empty the space where bitterness once lived. Closing scene. The balance months passed. The world moved on. But sometimes, late at night when the wind rattled my windows, I'd think of Mama's last look, the regret in her eyes. Not because she'd lost wealth, but because she'd finally seen my worth too late. I opened the Freedom folder one last time. Then I created a new one, named it Peace. Inside, I wrote one line. Some debts aren't meant to be paid. They're meant to be remembered. I closed the laptop, smiled faintly, and whispered to myself, This is how it ends. Not with revenge, but with peace that no one can borrow. The night after I exposed them, Lagos rain didn't stop falling. It beat against the roof like angry knuckles, the kind that don't knock. They demand. I sat on the edge of my bed, the envelope still in my lap, fingers tracing its edges. That folder, that one brown, unremarkable folder, had set fire to 4 years of pretense. By morning, I had no illusions left. I wasn't the good wife anymore. I was the villain. And villains don't rest easy. My phone rang just as dawn broke. Mama Tunde flashed across the screen. I let it ring. She called again. Then again. On the 4th try, I picked up. Not because I wanted to, but because silence was starting to sound like cowardice. Mama, so this is who you are, Anne? You think because you earn small money you can insult us publicly? Me, Mama, I didn't insult anyone. I just showed receipts. Mama, receipts? You humiliated your husband's family. Do you know what people are saying? Me, maybe they're saying the truth finally came out. There was a pause. Then her voice dropped, low, venomous. Nia, you've brought shame to our home. And I promise you, you'll regret this. Click. That was the sound of war being declared. By afternoon, I got the message from Tunda. We're having a family meeting tonight. Everyone expects you there. I knew what that meant. In Yoruba families, a meeting is never about peace. It's about power. When I arrived, the living room smelled of camphor and hypocrisy. Tunde sat stiffly beside his mother, eyes avoiding mine. Kunli lounged on the couch, scrolling his phone like the world owed him peace. Then the accusations began. Uncle Dio, you embarrassed the family in public. How could you? Aunt Ronke, a woman should protect her husband's image, not destroy it. Mama, we treated you like a daughter, yet you chose to disgrace us. I sat still. Not because I was scared, but because silence is sometimes louder than shouting. Then Mama leaned forward. You will apologize, Nia, right here. Right now. I looked at her. At the woman who had drained me of money, peace, and dignity. And I said calmly, no. The room froze. Excuse me? She hissed. I said no, Mama. I won't apologize for telling the truth. Her hand slammed the table. You have no respect, I stood. Respect is earned, not extorted. And then I left. Again. Only this time I wasn't running. I was reclaiming my name. That night, Tunde didn't come home. No calls. No texts. When he finally walked in the next morning, his eyes were bloodshot, jaw tight. He didn't say hello. He just threw his phone on the bed. The screen cracked, notifications flooding it. You made me a laughingstock, he muttered. Your family made me a fool for years, I replied. He laughed bitterly. Do you think people will respect me now? My wife exposing my family? Everyone's calling me a weak man. I stared at him, really stared, and realized that was all he cared about. Not how I felt. Not the truth. Just how he looked to others. You were fine letting them use me as long as no one knew, I said. Don't twist this, Nia, he snapped. You've turned me against my blood. That was when I finally saw it. The truth behind the man I married. He wasn't a victim of their manipulation. He was part of it. Every forgotten wallet, every emergency, every I'll pay you later, he'd been complicit. And that broke something final inside me. 2 days later, he came home unusually early. He dropped his bag on the couch, sat across from me, and said quietly, Mama is sick. We need N200,000 for her hospital bills. The audacity almost made me laugh. You're joking. I'm serious, Nia, please. This isn't about the past. I folded my arms. Then she can use her savings. Or ask Kunli. They don't have it. That's not my problem anymore. He stared at me, disbelief turning into disgust. You've changed. No. Tunda, I just stopped paying the price for your family's irresponsibility. Then, with one deep breath, I said what I'd been holding for years. If your love depends on how much I can give, it was never love. He stood, grabbed his keys, and left. He didn't come back that night. Or the next Lagos is small when you're the topic of gossip. Soon I became that wife. The disrespectful one, the proud one, the ungrateful one. A friend called to warn me that Tunde's mother was telling everyone I stole from the family. That I'd used their money for my career. It hurt, yes. But it also proved one thing. When manipulators lose control, they rewrite the story. So I started writing mine, publicly. I opened a blog, shared my experience anonymously under the name The Wife Who Paid for Love. It went viral within days. Hundreds of women messaged me saying they'd lived the same story. Silence, debt, emotional blackmail. That was when I realized this wasn't just my fight. It was a pattern bigger than me. 2 months later, Tunde showed up at my office. He looked tired, beard unkempt, shirt wrinkled. He sat across from me, eyes soft for the first time in years. Mama passed away last week. I froze. Not because of grief, but because of the cruel irony. The same woman who drained me dry was gone. And all I felt was emptiness. Tunde continued. Before she died, she said something about you. She said you were the only one who ever truly helped, and that she knew she used you. I didn't know what to say. He looked at me, tears welling. I lost my mother and my wife, and I don't know which hurts more. I closed my file slowly, met his eyes, and said, "Then maybe now you understand what loss feels like." He nodded once and walked away. That was the last time I saw him. Months later, I drove past Tasteville Restaurant, the same place the whole story began. I parked, stepped out, and watched families laughing through the windows. A waitress smiled at me through the glass. I smiled back, no folder this time, no guilt. No wallet games, just peace, the kind that doesn't ask to be earned. As I turned to leave, I whispered to myself, some lessons cost money. Mine cost 4 years, and I walked away, lighter, freer, and finally untouchable. They say healing doesn't come with fireworks. It comes quietly, like sunrise through half-closed blinds. For a long time, I thought I'd never feel light again, but freedom, it arrived slowly through little things, through laughter that no longer felt forced, through silence that didn't ache, through mornings where I didn't wake up, wondering who would need saving next. It had been 6 months since I'd seen Tunde, 6 months since I dropped that brown folder, the one that changed everything, and for the first time in years, I wasn't angry. I was awake. I remember the morning I realized I was truly done. I was brushing my hair when my eyes met the mirror, and for the first time, I didn't see the tired woman who always tried to please everyone. I saw me, not Tunde's wife, not the good daughter-in-law, just Nia, 32, alive, and finally in control of her story. I looked at my reflection and whispered, "You survived." Then I smiled. A small private smile, the kind that belongs only to people who've walked through fire and come out with glowing skin. Freedom wasn't instant. It was built piece by piece. I moved into a small apartment in Ikeja, one with leaky taps, noisy neighbors, and sunlight that poured in every morning like hope itself. I sold the old furniture that reminded me of my past life and bought new pieces with my own money, not gifts. Not guilt. Not favors. Just mine. I started attending therapy, something no one in my family believed in. And every week, my therapist asked the same question. What do you want for yourself, Nia? The first few times I didn't have an answer, but one day I did. Peace, I said. Not the quiet kind that hides pain. The real one, where I can breathe without apologizing. That's when I knew I was healing. 2 months later, I ran into Kunle, my brother-in-law, at a supermarket in Lekki. He looked surprised to see me, awkward even. His once polished sneakers were worn out, his usual arrogance replaced by a kind of weary humility. "Ah, Sister Nia." "Long time," he said softly. "Very long," I replied. He shifted uncomfortably. "About everything that happened." "I'm sorry. We didn't realize how much we were hurting you." I stared at him, searching his face for a lie. But for once, I didn't see one. He reached into his pocket, pulled out something, and placed it in my palm. A folded N1000 note. "For all the times I forgot my wallet," he said, smiling faintly. I laughed. A real laugh, the kind that feels like release. It wasn't about the money. It was about acknowledgement. For the first time, one of them finally saw me. My anonymous blog, The Wife Who Paid for Love, had grown beyond anything I expected. Women from across Africa began sharing their stories. Daughters, wives, even mothers who'd carried silent burdens for years. Soon, the stories turned into support groups. Then into workshops. Then into a foundation. We called it the Freedom Folder. It helped women document financial and emotional manipulation in relationships, to turn pain into proof, to find their voice before it's too late. And every time someone asked how it started, I'd smile and say, with a forgotten wallet and a brown folder. One evening, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name written in handwriting I knew too well. I sat on my couch and opened it slowly. "Nia, I don't know where to start. You were right, about everything. I let them use you, and I stood by, pretending it was love. I was weak. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I needed to say this. After Mama's death, I started seeing things differently. I found her diary. She wrote about you, about how she admired your strength, even when she resented it. She said, 'Nia loved us more than we deserved. I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I'm sorry for every time I chose silence. I hope you find happiness, and even if it's not with me.'" Tunde, I folded the letter and stared at it for a long time. No tears, no anger. Just closure. I didn't need revenge. The truth had already done what revenge never could. It freed me. Months later, at a small art gallery opening in Yaba, I met someone new. His name was Io, a photographer with kind eyes and a calm voice. He didn't ask about my past. He just listened when I spoke. He once told me, "You don't owe anyone an explanation for your piece." And I believed him. We took things slow. No promises, no performances. Just two people learning how to exist without pretending. Sometimes, I still flinch when someone says family, but Io just holds my hand and says, "We'll redefine it one moment at a time." One Sunday, I visited Mama Tunda's grave. Not for closure, I'd already found that, but for peace. I brought white flowers, placed them gently, and whispered, "You taught me my biggest lesson, to never let love become a transaction." The wind was calm, the sky clear. For the first time, I felt no bitterness. I turned to leave, and as I walked away, a single butterfly landed on the bouquet. Maybe it meant nothing, but to me, it felt like forgiveness. Months turned into a year. One evening, as I was preparing a speech for a women's conference, I came across the old folder again, the same brown one that had ended it all. It was worn, edges frayed, papers yellowing. I smiled. Then, without hesitation, I took it outside, lit a small match, and watched it burn. The papers curled and turned to ash, drifting into the night sky. That folder had once been my weapon. Now it was just history, because real freedom doesn't come from holding on. It comes from letting go. They said I destroyed a family, but the truth is I saved myself from one that was already broken. I used to think love meant sacrifice, but now I know. Real love never demands your silence, your money, or your soul. Sometimes freedom doesn't come wrapped in applause. It comes quietly when you finally choose yourself. My in-laws forgot their wallets again. But this time I didn't reach for mine. I reached for peace.